Hey everybody, this is EC521 Group 4. Our project is the security assessment on Nintendo 3DS. Nintendo 3DS is a popular portable game console. It has some nice games, including the very popular Pokemon Sun. Due to its popularity, hackers are exploiting this machine to try and find out a way to cheat on these popular games. And Homebrew Launcher, as a result, is where a lot of cheating softwares gets to work. There are also many other fan-made games on Homebrew Launcher so that the other players can play their games without having Nintendo admit it. While most players are happy with how they can pay less effort to the games, they probably did not realize how unsafe it is to have these hacks on their machine. Being able to cheat on games is not the only feature of Homebrew Launcher. It supports any softwares that need higher privileges, where camouflaged malicious softwares can run in the backend without user noticing it. Nintendo 3DS major attack surfaces include wireless services that communicate to the internet, vulnerability application softwares, hardware peripherals like SD card slot, RAM memory, and microprocessors. Applications, SD card and RAM and microprocessor vulnerabilities make it possible to run random code, and wireless services make it possible for malicious software to send local data to remote addresses, where the hackers are sitting there stealing your private information. Running Homebrew Launcher can be done with the game Cubic Ninja. Let me introduce Cubic Ninja first. It's a cute little game that lets the players control the protagonist by tilting the device. No matter how good it looks, this game has a vulnerability. Scanning QR code using Cubic Ninja can cause memory overriding the kernel heap. This exploit is called niche hacks, which is introduced in this slide. It allows you to run unsigned code on 3DS console. Since what you have overwritten is the kernel heap, the unsigned code are running at the kernel privileges. In practice, niche hacks is used to trigger the bootstrap of the Homebrew Launcher. Opening Homebrew Launcher with Cubic Ninja needs user to prepare Homebrew Launcher critical files in the SD card before they can scan the QR code, and then scan the crawling code in respect of the console's current firmware version.
Another vulnerability of 3DS is that the system can be downgraded. And downgraded means replacing the higher version of operating system with the lower version. Actually, Nintendo company updates the operating system quite often to fix vulnerabilities exist in the previous version. This makes exploitation harder. As a result, many users try to downgrade the operating system to have more exploitation options. The operating system is managed by the ARM11 processor on 3DS, and is separated from the other processor, ARM9, which controls the security of the device. This means if we can gain control of the ARM11 kernel, we should be able to accomplish downgrading easily. And this could be done by messing up with the memory. So first call memory allocator function, and then go through the memory chunk and map them to the user space. Then add memory block information to the kernel process. After we have the kernel privilege, simply have the processor updates the device with lower version of operating system. And besides ARM11, ARM9 processor could be also exploited by a MCU reboot. The MCU reboot exploitation is used to run on-site program which is not verified by Nintendo company. To do so, wire the I2C to MCU reboot on our command. Then write a payload to the ARM9 processor and fill all its memory with NOP select followed by a JMP jump instruction that points to the payload. When finishing all these steps, simply keep rebooting until the payload runs. The payload could be any on-site program. In most cases, players use this to trigger the Homebrew Launcher, which we will introduce in the next slide.
Homebrew, as a jailbreak platform, allows any third-party software to execute with userland access. If an attacker finds a security flaw from one of the homebrew softwares, he or she will have access to all the user's data. To demonstrate that, I want to introduce you an application preloaded on Homebrew called FTBrony. FTBrony is an FTP server for 3DS. It allows the user to wirelessly transfer files between the 3DS and another machine. So, when the user opens the application, the FTP server will be set up on the 3DS, and the private IP address of the device will be displayed on the screen, along with the default port number 5000. Then, the user can open an FTP client application in a remote machine connected to the same local area network with your 3DS. The next step is to input the IP address of the 3DS and port number 5000 to your FTP client application and click Connect. And the FTP connection will be made between the 3DS and the computer. On the computer, now you can browse the files on your 3DS. And since you have full userland access, it's totally possible for you to delete, create, and even change the permission of the files. However, there's one critical flaw. There's no authentication for the FTP connection. You see, when we established the connection from the client side, we left the username and password field empty. That's because FTBrony does not support this feature. It simply accepts the default username, anonymous, and default password, which is blank. Therefore, anybody who's connected to the same local area network as the user is able to establish a connection with the user's 3DS. An attacker can simply scan the local area network for the IP address and input the default username, password, and the port number to start a connection with the user 3DS, which grants the attacker userland access to all files on the 3DS. With these information, our group developed a malware that utilizes these vulnerabilities. We found an open source FTP server for 3DS called FTPD and used it to develop the malware. We first deleted all the outputs from the original application that logs out the details about the FTP connections, and then camouflaged the application as a joke teller. When the application is opened, the user can browse our very funny jokes and not realize that the FTP server is set up in the background. An attacker can then connect to the user's 3DS and gain userland access. No traces can be found. Now, we're going to demonstrate our malware. The user turns on the 3DS and enters the Homebrew launcher, navigating through all the applications, and there's our malware, very safe joke teller. The user enters the application and sees the message, "Welcome to the joke teller," and press A to get a joke. When the user presses the button, the jokes are shown on the screen in different colors, one by one. For the user, this is just a foolish application that tells bad jokes. Meanwhile, the user is browsing the amazing jokes from our joke teller. The application already finished setting up the FTP server in the background. This is the opportunity for the attackers to establish an FTP connection with the user's 3DS. First, we need to scan the local area network in order to locate the IP address of the Nintendo 3DS. Here, Nintendo Entertainment Device. All we need is the IP address, and we can go to the FTP client application for the next step. The application we're using is called FileZilla. Here, let's put in the IP address we obtained from the IP scanner, 192.168.1.116. Leave the username and password blank, just like the default settings, and the port number is 5000. And connect. Here, directory listing of root successful. And now we, the attackers, have full userland access to this Nintendo 3DS. We can navigate through all the files, like the applications, the photos, like this one, or this one, or what about this one? Whoa, 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 what is that? Favorite professor. Anyways, the attacker now have full userland access, and we can create, delete, rename, or change the permissions for all the files.